Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in
soft when I like somebody. The rest of y'all get this gangster shit, bitch.
Talk about some more freak accidents that has happened over the years at Lake Lanier. The ex-wife of R&B singer Usher, Tamika Foster, lost her son here a few years back, and the whole situation is just so tragic. To the point where she even made a petition, and she's had over 3,000 signatures. I'm sure there's more now. But in hopes of draining, cleaning, and restoring this lake. And in hopes of when the massive lake is completely drained, officials can safely remove hazardous materials to improve safety measures at this lake and to ensure the well-beings of all individuals. And that's because in 2012, almost 12 years ago, she lost her 11-year-old son due to a freak jet ski accident. Now at the time, the 11-year-old boy, Kyle Glover, was floating on an inner tube when a jet ski driven by a family friend crashed into him. And he was declared brain dead and spent weeks in the hospital due to his injuries. And sadly, he later passed. Now, this whole case is so sad because just think, you're just, on the lake with your family and your friends, and you're just trying to have a good time. And then this freak accident just happens. And the family friend that made a mistake and crashed into him, name was Jeffrey Hubbard. And he was convicted of several charges, including homicide by vessel, sentenced to serve 4 years in prison and 15 years on probation. Now, this happened in 2012, so I'm assuming that he's out now. But this is not the first, and it probably won't be the last freak accident that has happened on this lake. Heavy traffic on the lake has resulted in hundreds of boat collisions in the past 3 decades. So there has been over 200 deaths and accidents on this lake. And people think that it's because it is haunted due to the deep-rooted history that has taken place on this lake. Now, if y'all are out on this lake, please be cautious. And I know y'all be like, oh my gosh, like I'm going this lake all the time and nothing happens. All right, that's cool. But just keep it safe always, because there's just been a lot of history of accidents that has happened on this lake. And I know it's summertime and people want to be out on the water, but be cautious because this stuff is very much real. Let's talk about some more freak accidents that
it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. I wouldn't even go fishing out there.
Bray Barnett has lived in Atlanta his entire life, and Lake Lanier is not typically on his fun list.
People jumping off the boat and drowning. You know what I'm saying?
About 14 million people visit Lake Lanier every year, so it is inevitable that bad things do happen there. Boat accidents, fires, drownings. Even just in April, 24-year-old pro basketball player Dorian Pinson drowned after jumping off of a rented pontoon boat. Even this viral video, a young girl dancing on a boat just slips right off.
So far this year, we've had 7 drownings on Lake Lanier. Last year, we had 7 in total for the whole year.
Mark McKinnon works for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. The 176-foot lake is their responsibility.
That's where they live, up on the Lake Lanier.
Lake Lanier is built on top of a pillaged black town that faced the threat of genocide and 20 displaced cemeteries. The man-made lake is built over several small towns, the most disturbing being a predominantly black town that was once known as Oscarville. In this town, there were many black Americans who lived, breathed, built families, and even owned land. And the black townspeople of Oscarville formed a healthy community, a decent living that consisted of schools, churches, and small businesses. Yet they lived in constant fear that a racial attack could happen at any time. In 1912, those fears became a reality when the black townspeople of Oscarville fell victim to a gruesome racial cleansing. Night riders came into town and forced every black citizen out with a threat of genocide.
That's where they live, up on the Lake Lanier.
Lake Lanier
the most haunted lake in Georgia for a really good reason. In the 1950s, they wanted to make a lake. It wasn't underground already, like it was a town. Then they built a chasm around it. They gave everyone like a month or so to evacuate the town, and they just poured water into it and left all of the houses, roads. There's cars down
bodies,
there. I was wondering, I was like, why is it so haunted? And it turns out that if you camp next to the lake, there's over 20 reportings that the parents, they would fall asleep with the kids like at the campsite, and they'd wake up to either the kids trying to get out of the tent or walking towards the water, sleepwalking.
Oh my God.
And whenever the either like retrieves them out of the water or wakes them up, all of the kids say that something or someone was telling them to go under the water. Why would they just dump water over a town? I don't understand that.
It's like
at
they're
all.
trying to hide something.
The kind of, yeah, no, right? It's like what's buried under that town? Lake Lanier. It's the most haunted lake in Georgia.
Lake Lanier in Georgia. The government had decided they were going to flood this big canyon area in Georgia, but the big problem was there's a city there. Basically evacuated everybody out of there and flooded the thing. But you can go in that lake, and if you scuba dive, you can go swim down the streets of that town. And there's a lot of weird lore. I was working with a producer once who we were working on a bunch of episode ideas. This was one of the places the producer wanted to go. I didn't have a lot of interest because it's super duper duper dark. And some of the stories around this lake is that people camping around the lake, for instance, affects children mostly, where children will be called to go to the lake at night. Sometimes if a parent wakes up, they find the child sleepwalking toward the lake to go into the lake. And then the child has a story of, there was something telling me to go in, and it was pulling me into the lake.
Okay, surviving Lake Lanier. It was 1997. I went to the Brunswick Dark Course Center in January. So it would have been June, July, when they took us on a field trip to Lake Lanier. Like a field day. It was like a whole day thing. And I had a friend of mine who asked me if I would go out on the water, on the floaty with her. Now, mind you, she's from Tennessee. I'm from Florida. I'm from the beach, okay? So, I told her, yeah, I would go out there with her and Sammy Dredd. But he had to assure me that he could swim, which he did. She couldn't swim either. But we both did go out there trusting that if something happened, that he had us, okay? So we go out on the float, we having a good time, you know, we out there sneaking and burning one, we having a great time. And then all of a sudden, this dude that me and Twin, we call him the Demon, because every time we smoked with him, which was maybe 2 times before this particular day, he started looking like a demon after we smoked, so we started calling him Demon. So he came out there and we was like, you know, don't play, because we can't swim. So he was like, you know, okay, whatever. Went under the water as if he was about to swim away, went underneath the float, and came under the float and knocked both of us off the float. Now, this is where it gets weird. Not weird, but this is where it really goes down. Okay, so I go underneath the water, and I can't tell you exactly what my thoughts were as I was falling off of the float into the water. But the moment my face, my head went under the water, there was not a feeling of, or a thought of, oh my God, I'm drowning. It was like instantly, wow, it's trees down here. It is freaking trees under here. And then I heard a voice. Plain as day, it sounded just like me. And it said, Chastity, you're under the water. And I said to myself, of course not out of my mouth because I was under the water, not like this, Lord. In that moment, I heard instructions, which was to take my hands, do them like this, and do the action of maybe of flying. So I did that with both of my hands, and I out of the water. When I came out of the water, I yelled while looking around, my feet won't touch the ground, and boosh. Whew, excuse me, y'all. Back under the water. Again, as soon as I got back under the water, man, I'm telling you, there was not a thought of fear. It was not a thought of, oh my God, I'm drowning. It was, wow, there really is trees under here. And then in that moment, I can't tell you, all I can tell you is somebody picked me up out the water and walked me to the shore. All the movies, since 97 to now, every movie that I've seen when somebody is drowning, the person that's saving them grabs them around, this area or something like that, and they swim with them to a safe place. That's not what happened. Nobody swam with me nowhere. Somebody, a black man, picked me up, carried me out of the water, and set me on the shore. I don't owe you a lot, because I don't know you. I've only shared my story with a couple people. And that's my story, and it's the truth. I'm here. And I pray that this video comes across twin. This chat, girl, is me from Job Code, your bestie. I pray to God that it come across Sammy Dredd, because he was out there, because he saved Twin, just in case y'all wonder what happened to Twin. He saved Twin. He was busy with Twin. I can't tell you exactly what happened because I was in the moments that I just described to you. But I know that Twin was okay because Twin was with him. You know what I'm saying? So I wish, I pray, I hope, whichever word makes you feel more comfortable, I manifest, whatever word makes you feel more comfortable, that they see this and they can testify to what I'm saying. Nobody swam me out of the water. A black man carried me to the shore and set me on the shore. And in that moment, I'm the reason why we had to stop the field trip, because all the fellas that was around, when I saw Demon, I said, that's him, he tried to drown me. Yeah, and they all got on his ass, his behind, his buttocks. Yeah, so we had to pack up and we had to go back. That was because of me. Anybody that was at Lake Lanier in 1997 that was in Brunswick Child Court that remember the rumble on the side of the lake, you ain't gonna remember me drowning because you weren't out there. If by chance you was the person who got me to the shore, you ain't swim me there, stand up and say something, because it's a real story, true to life, and I know you can feel it because it's the truth. Ain't no lie and nothing I just said. So, hey, thank you for listening to me share a little piece of my life. If you want to hear more, I got so many stories to tell you of how God saved me. How the devil got to get me. But I'm still here. Yup. Love y'all. Peace out.
This lake called Lake Lanier. I don't know if you remember that. It's in Georgia.
Is that the one with like a bunch of cemeteries that they turned into like a river or something like that?
No. It actually wasn't even a bunch of. It wasn't a cemetery.
It was like a whole city, right?
It was a whole city before. Yeah. It was like a city with predominantly black people.
Yeah.
The city in general, or the people that were the head of whatever, they wanted to turn it into a lake, that whole area. And instead of letting these people know, they just flooded the whole motherfucker. That's crazy. So people believe that this lake is haunted.
For sure.
Nigga, this lake has caught so many bodies after the fact of all this shit. And there's even been so many crazy reports. I already told you, like, they said they'll see, like, at night, if you go hella late, you'll probably around and see, like, a girl or some woman or something walking along the lake. Or people said if you go and you're swimming in the lake and you go underwater, like, you submerge yourself, you can sometimes hear, like, a church bell. And there was a church over there in that point in time.
That's crazy.
So recently, this was like last week type shit, bro. This 24-year-old dude, he goes and he jumps into the lake to just go swimming. And for some weird reason,
never comes out.
Dude, he got electrocuted.
What the
Hey, my beautiful people. I'm Tea Time. Did you hear about the 73-year-old man who mysteriously drowned in Georgia's most haunted lake? Matthew Mayo was fishing with his wife in a boat in Lake Lanier when he went to sit down in his seat, but the seat mysteriously unbolted itself and he fell into the lake and never resurfaced. His wife watched the entire thing in terror and they had to use radars to find his body. Since 1994, there have been more than 200 mysterious deaths at Lake Lanier. This is a man-made lake that covers a city with a terrible past. Lake Lanier is located in northern Georgia. It's now a vacation spot that attracts millions of people every year. Lake Lanier is the former site of a city that was called Oscarville. In 1912, a white woman was assaulted and they placed the blame on a black man even though there was no evidence. A mob of angry white men picked this man up, tortured him, beat him, and mutilated him in front of everybody. But that wasn't enough. They decided to go even further by going to every black church and every black business in the entire city of Oscarville and burning it to the ground. Every black resident of Oscarville was forced to leave the city. And soon after, the town was completely abandoned. In 1950, when developers saw that this was an abandoned town, they decided to turn it into a vacation attraction. And instead of knocking down all of the buildings and getting rid of everything, they just flooded the city, covering up its entire history, including the cemeteries. Many believe that Lake Lanier is a death trap and that it needs to be drained and spiritually cleansed, or it will continue to claim lives year after year. Rest in peace, Matthew Mayo, Lake Lanier's latest victim. I'm Tiara.
Lake Lanier, that shit not a lake. Under it, it was a black community. Most of these lakes made to cover up evidence. Y'all swimming in graveyards, gotta be losing it. Seneca Village, a black town up in New York, where black people own LA properties. They tore it down and put up Central Park. They was hating on us the whole time. What the fuck? Cowaliga, black town in Alabama destroyed. Now it's Lake Martin, Santa, another town under that lake. Those is black Wall Streets, we can never be great. Vanport, Oregon, another black town got flooded. Now that shit Delta Park. Where's our reparations? What the hell? These crimes need a punishment worse than jail. Warren in Baltimore, Maryland, a community that was black ran. And guess what them niggas put over it? I goddamn damn. I know it's a black town under the Hoover. I know it's a black town under Lake Mead. I know it's a black town under all these goddamn lakes. In the day, niggas stoking our breed. Got my ancestors under the sea. Got my ancestors buried on trees. Where the fuck is my goddamn money? Y'all paying these taxes, but what about me? Bitch, come on part 2, cause I cannot lay it out. It's just too much fuckery. Get in this world back, that is Lake Lanier.
So there's one story, and it's the haunting of Lake Lanier. And it's not long after the completion of the project in 1958. Delia Parker Young and her friend Susie Roberts, they were headed to a local roadhouse in her 1954 Ford. Earlier that night, the two were spotted at a gas station with Delia wearing a blue dress. This was the last time they were seen again. The only evidence left behind were skid marks on the bridge across Lake Lanier that indicated that she lost control and the car went off of the bridge into the water. Divers searched relentlessly, but their bodies and vehicle were never found. A year later, following the accident, a fisherman spotted the remains that had floated to the surface of the lake. The woman's body wore a blue dress, but it was unidentifiable, and strangely, the body was missing both of its hands and several toes. Authorities assumed it may be one of the girls from the accident. However, they were unable to make a conclusion because her remains were just so mangled, and so she was put in an unmarked grave. And it wouldn't be until 31 years later, in 1990, that bridge maintenance would unveil Delia's car with Susie Roberts that was still inside of the car. She was identified by dental records, and it was simultaneously determined that the earlier remains belonged to Delia. The girls were buried next to each other, and Delia's grave was no longer unmarked. Since the tragedy, visitors at the lake claim they see a ghostly figure of a woman in a blue dress near the bridge, and the ghost has no eyes and no hands. She's known as the Lady of the Lake, and that sometimes she would drag people underwater.
That's so spooky.
Friends, do y'all want to know secrets? All right, I'm gonna tell y'all because I know y'all ain't gonna tell nobody. Do y'all want to hear about a town that was completely wiped off the face of the earth, underwater, and folks be out there jet skiing and scuba diving like it ain't nothing? Oscarville, baby. This video is for educational purposes only. Oscarville was a predominantly black town. It was formed in the late 1800s, okay? Like 1880s or something like that. The Freedom Bell rung for blacks in 1865, and after that time, blacks had to learn how to survive on their own and create wealth for themselves, and most of the time they were sharecroppers, but they started building these communities where they had churches, blacksmiths, stores, all kinds of stuff. Now, in 1912, there was a white lady named May. She went to the people and said that she had been SA'd, okay? And of course, you know that started trouble. Now, this triggered a mob to start destroying people's stuff, their property and them. Now, May went on to glory on September 23rd from the essay that took place. And the people that she accused of this, they were tried and sentenced on the same day. And they were sentenced to be sent on to glory as well. Not only did they send them on to glory, but they also enjoyed talking about it. And they did a whole press conference talking about how these people was like laundry on a clothesline. Okay, y'all get what I'm saying? Now, let's keep in mind that May's great-grandniece mentioned that she don't believe that those two people were guilty based on her grandmother's story. Her grandmother would have been the sister, okay? The sister of May. Now, this mob that was already out of control got even more out of control and began to continue the things that they were doing in the community. Now, here's a militia proudly guarding the two men that were accused on the day of the trial that they were also sentenced on. Now, 2 weeks later, there was another essay that happened to a white woman, and she said a black person did this to her. And y'all know what happened after that. I don't have to explain. Following the sentencing of those 2 black people that were accused of doing something again, they began to grow even more upset, that angry mob. And over a month's period of time, they chased all the black people out of the town, which was over 1,000 people. Mind you, this is a predominantly black town. These are actual pictures of the residents of that town walking and relocating. Now, some years later, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers decided that they're going to turn this city into a lake and name it after Confederate soldier veteran and poet Sidney Lanier. And just to confirm, Oscarville is not the only town that was flooded by this lake. The other towns just didn't have their names named in the history book. Now, after completion of the Beaufort Dam in 1956, a town that was once teeming with life is completely underwater. But sometimes when the water recedes, you see remnants of what was once a racetrack. Trees that were once a part of that town being uncovered in the drought. Now, there have been a lot of people that have gone on to glory or to the upper room that were on this lake. I wouldn't advise anybody to go out. Now, although we know that there were a ton of secrets that were covered up by flooding this town, I'm going to let y'all know that this is Atlanta's water supply. Okay? Lake Lanier is a reservoir for Atlanta. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to call y'all back later. Bye.
A public service announcement for anybody who lives in Georgia and who don't know about Lake Lanier, or maybe you just recently moved to Georgia and you don't know about Lake Lanier. So the biggest thing is don't go there. The lake is haunted. They're supposed to be opening up this theme park, Margaritaville, at Lanier Islands here in May of 2024. It's supposed to be some new theme park, water park, you know, but it's based off of, it's sitting on Lake Lanier, so it's going to be haunted as well. There's going to be a lot of tragedies up there. And here's the story behind Lake Lanier if you don't know. It used to be an all-black city. The residents there, they were big on farming, and, you know, they had blacksmiths, carpenters. It was a thriving and upcoming town. It was Oscarville is the name of it. So, you know, everything was thriving until 1912 when this woman by the name of May Crow, she was white and she turned up essayed and murdered in the woods. The part of the woods that she was found near, they say it was near Oscarville. And of course, back there in 1912, anything went wrong, they went and found some black people and, you know, said they did, or black men, and said, hey, this is the suspect. They just find one, harass them, and say that, oh, this is the person that did it, whether there's a rhyme or reason to what happened. And so after that happened, so that night that happened, they gathered the Klan. I mean, they call them night riders, but these night riders, they forced all the black people to leave. You gotta just kind of leave with the clothes on your back. And then they got to, there's a bridge that's separating Oscarville and another town, and they told them either you're gonna swim across this, because you're not crossing this bridge, you're gonna swim, or you know, drown if you can't swim. And so a lot of people drowned in that lake. The night riders, they burned down the churches, and they were just basically burning the city and killing people out in the streets. The people that didn't run, they were slaughtered and killed. And so they blamed the whole community because this woman came up, essayed, and murdered in the woods. And we all know back then, there's no way in hell that these two communities were even commingling like that, to the point where if you seen this woman with two black men, there would have been a problem off the rip. You feel what I'm saying? But let's get back to Lake Lanier. Drove out all the black people. They constructed Lake Lanier in the 1950s, dammed over that old city, Oscarville. There's all types of stuff in the water. There's, you know, buildings and trees that are super tall that's at the bottom of the lake. You know, there's all types of stuff in there, but been about 500 boating and drowning deaths since the 1950s, and about 100 or so, or 100 or more rescues, and 27 people have never been recovered. People have died. Even Usher Raymond's stepson died in an incident in Lake Lanier. Yeah, I would think twice about going to this water park just because of the deadly history that it has. And then there's people who have all types of weird stories about being in the lake, the people that were rescued or that were saved. There are people who come out with their stories like they felt something grabbing at their legs, you know, trying to pull them under. It's not nothing. It's not like another person playing with them. So you guys definitely, if you don't know, this is your, you know, warning not to go there, no matter how nice the new constructed park looked. Y'all drop a comment if you heard about Lake Lanier. Peace out. This is a public service announcement for anybody who lives in Georgia and who don't know about Lake Lanier, or maybe you just recently moved to Georgia and you don't know about Lake Lanier. So the biggest thing is don't go there. The lake is haunted. They're supposed to be opening up this theme park, Margaritaville, at Lanier Islands here in May of 2024. supposed to be some new theme park, water park, but it's based off of, it's sitting on lake.
Y'all ever hear of the lake that was built over a black town that is so haunted that it had over 200 deaths since 1994? And before I even start my video, don't go here trying to fuck around and find out. Only go here if you are willing to thank the spirits that's underneath this man-made lake and bring offerings. Get your popcorn. This is Lake Lanier, and it's located in Gainesville, Georgia, but it's formerly known as Oscarville, Georgia. It was formed in the late 1800s during the Reconstruction era. It was a thriving African-American town that was full of carpenters, bricklayers, and blacksmiths, but their main moneymaker was farming. This was one of the many towns that were full of African-Americans that were thriving at this time. That is until 1912, when May Crow, a W woman, was found dead in the woods. And in true colonizer form, they blamed the African Americans for this death. They said she was murdered and raped, which is like a dog whistle back then for racist W people. So the night that she was found, this little town of Oscarville became enemy number one. They burned down the churches, unalived a lot of the townspeople, and began the deconstruction of Oscarville. Some of the descendants that did make it out of Oscarville are still alive to this day and are telling Patakis, like stories from their ancestors. After it was all said and done, they took this black town and flooded it using the Beaufort Dam and the Chattahoochee River. And this is where they're about to fuck around and find out. It is said that this lake is haunted. Not a little haunted. Like, do not go in this area without paying your respects or even just like offerings. I said at the beginning of my video, this is the last warning I'm going to give y'all. Some say that this lake was built over this town in 1956 for flood control and for drinking water, but I call it bullshit. That was done purposely. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody unalived May Crow just for all of this to happen. But I'm a conspiracy theorist, so just ignore what I say. Either way, over 700 black families died on this lake, or under it, I should say. But spirit really never dies. And spiritual reparations are real. That's why I always tell y'all to be good and do good. Drownings and motor vessel incidents are very common along this lake. Meaning that you either drown when you get in that water, if your spirit ain't right, or your boat causes you to die some way, somehow, which is also just as bad. There are several bodies that were never recovered from this lake. There are talks about women in a blue dress, which is one of the most famous ghost stories. Even one of the most famous R&B singers of our time, or my time, because you know I'm a seasoned chicken, lost his stepson in these waters due to a jet ski accident. This water is cursed. And I don't know if gender, race, or anything gives you a one-up on these waters. Either way, this lake is so haunted, I will never be visiting it. I'll go, but I'm just gonna look as a person on the shore outside of the water. Because I'm not trying to fuck around with nothing and find out. Y'all go ahead and leave in the comments what y'all think. What y'all think is going on with Lake Lanier. As well as your experiences. If you ever been in this water, let me know. Y'all ever hear of the lake that was built over a black town?
I'm only soft when I like somebody. The rest of y'all get this gangster shit, bitch.